Chef Ramsay is usually friendly with the waitstaff, but these waiters were so bad that they literally drove him up the wall. Like this one right here, who was deemed to be the worst waiter to have ever been featured on Kitchen Nightmares. Do you know what's worse than being the worst? Defending someone who acts like shit. When Chef Ramsay traveled all the way to Dillon's right in the heart of New York City, he never expected to meet an annoying employee. The restaurant, which served all kinds of cuisines, suffered from what I'd like to call an identity crisis. All the owner, Mohammed Islam, wanted to do was start a new life. But somewhere in the middle of making things perfect, he messed everything up. While restaurants often have one manager and an assistant manager, Dillon's had 3 different ones who didn't even know what their roles were. Of the 3, Martin, the general manager, was the most useless of them all. He spent most of his time either on his phone or on the waitress's laps. Nope, I'm not making this up. For some reason, the ladies love to pamper him. I guess he knew how to abuse his power. And guess what? This was all happening during business hours. Well, I'm not sure what the customers would think if they saw that, but Martin certainly didn't care. This is what he had to say about it.
I was resting, just thinking of various things I've got to sort out. It was a natural thing.
But that's not all. Martin never actually managed anything. While the restaurant and kitchen were in shambles, Martin was busy doing this. But nothing escapes the famous chef's eyes. He knew exactly what Martin was up to, so he made it a point to confront him.
Girl stroking your hair, massaging your ego. I've never met a general manager so as you.
But wait, I've said enough about this pathetic manager because this video is about the worst waiters ever. So what happened is, before the relaunch, Chef Ramsay gave his usual pep talk, right? When it came to discussing Martin, Chef Ramsay didn't hesitate to point out his mistakes.
When the customers sit down, will you not sort of be so false when you jump on? Just sometimes I feel it's so in your face.
While all of this was happening, Jenna, one of the waitresses, didn't exactly like how Chef Ramsay was talking about Martin. And guess what? She actually had the audacity to cut in and tell the famous chef this.
You're giving him such a hard time and it's making me angry.
The worst part is that the others were agreeing with her. But hold on a minute. What did Martin even contribute to the restaurant? Absolutely nothing. It's not like he stepped up as a leader either. It made complete sense for Chef Ramsay to give him a good earful, and he wasn't gonna take crap from anyone, especially the staff. Without a moment's thought, the famous chef shut her up in the most iconic way possible when he said this.
The lack of respect this man has, that's with him, not with you. So would you mind keeping your nose out of my business?
That's when, out of nowhere, Martin jumped in to defend his lovely waitress. And as usual, Ramsay had the perfect response to him as well.
You don't need your mignon to try and convince me how good you are on the back of what I've experienced.
After the episode aired, several viewers speculated if Martin and Jenna were in a relationship. But I don't think that's the case. This dude was pretty much the same with every woman there. And since his dirty side got exposed to the world, apparently in 2007, after the show aired, this useless manager actually sued Chef Ramsay. According to the caterer, Martin came up with false accusations. He claimed that Chef Ramsay lied about finding rotten meat at the restaurant, hired actors to patronize, and above all, unfairly targeted him. One Reddit user added that Martin filed a $3 million lawsuit against Chef Ramsay and Kitchen Nightmares. Apparently, he wanted to prevent the episode from airing, but as you'd expect, he lost the case. While Martin seems to have disappeared after this fiasco, Jenna will forever be remembered for supporting a manager who did anything but his job. But this next restaurant not only had a stubborn and delusional owner, but an overbearing waitstaff as well. Chef Ramsay traveled all the way to California to Secret Garden, a French cuisine restaurant. Here, he got to meet an owner who wasn't ready to accept any change, whether in himself or otherwise. This restaurant was in a fantastic location next to a luxurious golf course. Despite the fact that the property prices were booming, since Secret Garden was in a wine state, it should have ideally been packed with customers. However, that wasn't the case at all. Michael Bardavid, who owned the restaurant for 7 years, was $300,000 in debt. But here's the catch. Instead of finding a solution to get out of this debt, he let his ego work its way out. Like any egotistical owner, Michael also had a hard time taking criticism. When Chef Ramsay critiqued the awful food, Michael wasn't liking any of it, but Jane, his waitress, wasn't the one who spoke up.
The only complaint I might get is a food's cold.
It's funny how she admitted that it was difficult to work with Michael, but yet here she was taking his side. However, this time, she forgot that she was dealing with Chef Ramsay, who shut her up by saying this.
I've just sat there for the last hour and had one of the worst meals I've ever eaten.
But there was more to follow. During the service, it hardly took an hour for things to turn into chaos. Several customers were left disappointed with the lack of food, and the servers had to go through their anger. While most employees tried their best to calm the situation down, Jane had a mind of her own. Take a look at her saving her own butt.
All I can do at this point is give you food. I can't do anything else.
See, I know she had a point, but that's not how you deal with customers. She was so frustrated and arrogant that it only made the customers even more irate. But you know how they say like-minded people easily get along? Well, after a successful relaunch, Michael promoted Jane to the manager position. And instead of being grateful, this is what Jane had to say.
Now I'm the manager. I am the bitch of the place.
Now, that's a red flag right there, guys. This one would definitely give a hard time to the employees who work under her. One Reddit user blamed it all on her personality. On the other hand, one review on Yelp specifically mentioned how the staff didn't get along well and how there was something off about the vibe. But this next restaurant was a total nightmare because of the owner. The fact that her daughter was a server only made things worse. While Italian food is absolutely delicious, this restaurant had the opposite. Now, Chef Ramsay traveled all the way to Woodland Park, Colorado to Manja Manja, which served Italian food. The restaurant owner, Julie Watson, bought a building that served fast food and turned it into an Italian eatery. Being the only Italian restaurant in the neighborhood, Manja Manja should have ideally been booming with business, but that's not exactly what happened. Julie wasn't the kind of boss you'd want to work for. She was poor in managing the place, wasn't good with the staff, and the only thing she did was scare them. She literally managed the place like a dictator, which is why the staff was broken. In short, Julie was a toxic control freak. But her daughter Janelle was even worse than her. A Reddit post spoke about how Janelle was doing nothing apart from making excuses and trying to convince everyone that she was right. Right from the get-go, you could see that there was absolutely no harmony between the staff. Julie and Janelle both disliked Trevor, their head chef. While Julie told Chef Ramsay about Trevor being the restaurant's main issue, Janelle said this.
You tried to punch me.
Hold on.
Wait, did you just say punch? What actually happened here? Let's hear it from Janelle herself.
Yeah, he pushed me into the walk-in and tried to punch me when I told him I was gonna call the cops.
Okay, I definitely don't support physical altercations, but doesn't Janelle come across like a bully herself? And if no one liked Trevor, then why didn't they just fire him? Simple, right? So just get it over with. If you ask me, I think Janelle was the one who kept looking for opportunities to insult Trevor, like this time right here.
He has absolutely no idea what he's doing. That guy's an idiot.
Everyone knew that the food sucked, including the chefs, but Julie believed that the food was great, and so did Janelle.
I have had very few customers ever actually complain to my face.
Okay.
If that was the case, then why didn't Chef Ramsay enjoy all the dishes? Something was wrong, right? Now, Trevor might have been a useless chef, but Julie only made it harder for him. As for Janelle, she never stopped defending her mother.
I say stuff all the time.
You never say anything, Kevin!
When Kevin, the other chef, spoke about Julie not taking any responsibility, Janelle didn't even spare him.
She tries to, but you guys don't even give her a chance!
As Julie and Trevor argued, Janelle jumped in yet again and revealed a very shocking thing about Trevor.
And you know you're a tweaker! You've been doing drugs for 3 years!
Now, what bewildered me is that if they knew he was on dope, then why did they keep him? Trevor should have been fired the day he attacked Janelle. One YouTube user also had the same question. He said that he had more respect for Trevor for admitting his issues to Ramsay than he did for Julie. Despite knowing about his addiction, Julie still chose to use him since she put her needs over his life. While many defended Trevor, several others pitched in to support Janelle. A Reddit post was made about why people were defending Trevor and talked shit about Janelle. One user mentioned how Trevor only wanted to get back at someone who put his truth out in the open. What do you think? Was Janelle right, or was she just a bully? Anyway, for those of you who are wondering where Trevor is now, he apparently entered rehab for 6 months and has been sober ever since. He was looking to enroll into culinary school, and this is all information we got from his father. But these owners tried to compete with their father's successful restaurant, but failed miserably. And while the owners were unprofessional, one of the servers was completely unethical. Chef Ramsay traveled all the way to Boston to visit La Galleria 33, an Italian restaurant. Sisters Rita and Lisa opened the restaurant in 2006 right across from their father's successful restaurant. Their competition wasn't only with their father, but also the 80 other restaurants around. Rita and Lisa weren't only poor at handling the business, but they were also unprofessional. Rita smoked way too much and Lisa drank in front of the customers. On top of that, the head chef of the restaurant was Rita's husband, Doug. Doug wasn't a trained chef, and the only training he got was from Lita and Reese's dad since he worked with him previously. In an interview, Chef Ramsay talked about the restaurants that gave him headaches as well as restaurants that gave him good times, and La Galleria 33 was one of his best memories. He said, "During this time, I visited over 100 restaurants meeting and trying to help, or in some cases failing to help, some of the most weird and wonderful people. Of course, Amy's Baking Company is a standout along with Bonaparte's, but there were good times too, the lovely sisters at La Galleria and Mama Sherry's to name but two." But let's discuss the server that left everyone in a bind. I'm talking about the notorious Sarah. Many viewers believe that Sarah intentionally served Chef Ramsay wine instead of water. Remember this?
I think you said water, Sarah, honey.
Water? Oh, I'm sorry.
One YouTube user also gave an explanation as to why Sarah may have done that. According to him, she just wanted to bring Lisa's drinking issue to the surface.
Lisa loves wine. She likes to drink.
While Rita hoped that Chef Ramsay didn't order the seafood ravioli, Sarah did this.
Seafood ravioli special?
When Rita confronted Sarah about it, her response left me stunned.
That he will know about it.
This server was here to do some major damage. Later, when everyone gathered for a meeting the next day, Rita called out to the staff for being lazy. But Sarah disagreed with everything she said.
Never customers in here till 7 o'clock. Does that give you the right to sit all night?
That's not true.
And before you know it, things got really intense.
Rosa, how many days do you come in late? Say every day?
If Sarah was the one who left me in splits, this revelation left me in shock, and I'm sure it's gonna do the same for you too.
Miguel, you scratch your in the dining room.
Come on.
It's inappropriate.
While the servers agreed to be lazy, Sarah stood up for herself by saying this.
I'm sorry, I disagree. I'm not lazy. I'm sorry.
Sarah disagreed with everything the owner said, and she was quite firm in her defense.
Sarah!
No, sorry,
Yes,
Lisa.
no.
Lisa.
Wait a minute.
Things were getting heated, with accusations flying through the air from all directions. That's when Lisa made another revelation about Sarah. Lisa said that there were servers that didn't work with her because she hogged tips, but what did Sarah have to say about that? Listen to this for yourselves.
I see the people, you guys the ones who see the people.
When Sarah was hired, Pat was supposed to receive 20% of the tips from her, but he never received it. But guess what? Sarah continued to deny every bit of it too.
And that's
He has seen it.
No, he's not.
No.
She wasn't ready to accept that she was in the wrong. Her reason was that she worked her ass off and needed to make money, but so did Pat, right?
I was working my ass that day.
So was he!
Everybody agreed with whatever Lisa said about Sarah, but Sarah was beginning to get a little pissed off. It suddenly felt like everyone had turned their backs on her.
Sorry, I'm going home.
Thank God.
The whole problem with Sarah was that she wasn't ready to take responsibility. Right from hogging tips to disliking the owners, things could never be smooth with so much animosity between the staff. But these two former waitresses bought a restaurant without giving it a single thought, but what made it worse was their waiters. Let's head over to a restaurant in West Babylon called Classic American. Owned by best friends Colleen and Naomi, both owners used to work at the restaurant as waitresses before buying it in 2000. Colleen made her son the chef and her boyfriend Dom the manager. However, none of them were useful and the restaurant was nowhere near a Classic American. Dom might have been useless, but somehow he managed to make the viewers laugh. One Reddit user made a post about Dom and how he found him hilarious. Even though he was able to crack us up, he never did a good job. In fact, Dom should have never been a manager in the first place, but I guess everything was done on a whim. Out of all the problems, the servers at this place were the main issue. They lacked professionalism and were always busy wasting time.
The waitresses, they're texting in between working.
Colleen and Naomi, who should have stepped up, never said anything to them. Ashley, one of the waiters, had worked for 10 years. Knowing how the restaurant wasn't making any money, you'd expect her to quit sooner. But I guess it's the environment that Colleen and Naomi created that made them stay. I mean, which owner or boss would like to see their employees on their phones rather than working? Well, Ashley's reason for staying back wasn't what I thought it would be. Listen to this.
It's like a little family.
Great.
However, one thing I did like about Ashley was that she admitted her mistakes. When Ramsay had a staff meeting after the disastrous service, Colleen spoke about the phone problem and Ashley immediately admitted it.
You text when customers are... Wow.
Even though Ashley didn't do an impressive job as a waiter, she definitely impressed the viewers with her looks. One of the viewers also wrote that he wouldn't mind receiving Ashley's message while he was in the middle of his dinner. Well, she might be one of the worst waitresses, but she did end up making a few fans. Speaking of the worst, there's one other waitress that comes to mind. Although she didn't get much attention on the show, the few minutes of footage that she did get were totally worth it. I'm talking about the waitress Nicole at Bella Luna in Easton, Pennsylvania. While Rosaria, the owner, was in denial, Tracy, the manager, was desperately trying to put the restaurant on the map. As for Nicole, she was in her own wild world. She was the first server to attend to Chef Ramsay when he sat down to taste his food. And well, when he asked her what was wrong with the place, this is what she had to say.
Management not focusing on what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, I can't deny that what she said was the truth, but it's how she said it that gets me every time. When Chef Ramsay asked her to elaborate on the issues further, this is what she had to say.
There's a lot of name-calling, disrespectfulness in the back.
Well, one way or the other, Ramsay at least found out what was happening at the back end of the restaurant. However, of course, he also thought that her behavior was strange, so he checked with Tracy if he could trust her. And the way Tracy responded was epic.
She seems like a nice girl.
No.
What do you mean?
No. Out of her mind.
Tracy then went on to speak about this muddled employee when she said this.
Nicole is a moron. Nicole needs to be out of here.
Well, I think that pretty much sums up what Nicole was like at her job. She clearly sucked at it. Viewers soon pointed out that they felt like Nicole was as high as a mountain. And I simply can't help but agree. She definitely was. So these were some of the worst kitchen nightmares waiters ever. But who knows, there may be more employees who are hell-bent on exposing the owners in the future.